Back, it's week 3 fantasy football recap. Man, it feels good to finally be in a one column in this league, advancing to 1 and 2. Currently up about 24, and I'm the only one that has somebody who hasn't played, and it's my kicker. So, as long as my kicker doesn't get me negative 25 points, I win this week. But let's go ahead and break down just exactly how I won this week. So, starting with Drake May. I made the last minute decision to start Drake May over Kyler Murray. Drake May ended up getting 5 more points than Kyler Murray. Drake May with a good game this week. Had 268 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 7 carries for 45 yards. This is really why I like Drake May, because not only will he give you good passing numbers, but he's often going to get you a couple of carries, a touchdown here and there. So the upside for him is really, really high, which is why I like him as a pickup. Kyron Williams, steady performance, 19.2 fantasy points. Had 20 carries, 94 yards, 4.7 yards a carry. Like I said, I expect his numbers to start going up. And when he starts getting more touchdowns, we're going to see an easy 20 points from him. So I'm liking these numbers so far. Chuba Hubbard, only 9.6. Expecting that to go back up, but they won 30-0. I'm surprised he didn't get more points. But Puka Nacua, another 20-point game by him. This week, he finished with 100 yards off 11 catches, no touchdowns. I mean, at this point, it's a foregone conclusion he's going to get at least 10 targets. Like 15, 9, 11. Win or lose, I'm confident that he's going to get his 10 targets, which is fantastic for fantasy football for me. 20 points from him. Nico Collins, great bounce back game for him. Oh, I lied. First week was a week he had a bad week. Last week at 14, and then this week at 8. So just constant progression by him. 100 yards, a touchdown off of 11 targets. Love that. Lad McConkey, definitely was expecting a little more from him this week. Only 4 receptions on 7 targets. But the Chargers have been playing pretty decent, so I can't say too much. I'm not sure if they won this game, though. I feel like they lost this game. Nope, they won. They won by 3. But yeah, 3-0. Can't really be mad at it if they're winning. But would love to see more production from him, get a couple more catches. But like I said, I did enough to win. Tyler Warren. Tight ends are always hard to kind of gauge in fantasy. You really never find any that are consistent. Like Tucker Craft last week, I believe, had 25 or 24 points, and then this week he only had 6. Like, it's really hard to gauge tight ends, but Tyler Warren was my best player, the best tight end this week, and he only had 6.8 points on 3 receptions, 38 yards. So hoping that goes up next week. Tony Pollard's solid performance, 13.9 points off of 16 carries and a touchdown, 2 catches to go along with that. Bucky Irvin, 13-point solid performance as well. The Falcons, I did not think the Falcons were going to do this bad against the Panthers. I picked them up thinking that there would be a sleeper for me, and they got shut out. That's football for you, because my goodness, no one thought the Panthers would actually be good this week, and they wanted to shut out the Falcons, who I think were 2-0 going into that game. So that's very, very alarming. But like I said, just happy to be in the win column. Got a comfortable win this week. My opponent had a really solid roster, but it just wasn't enough. I believe Jaden Daniels is injured. James Conner got injured. So honestly, really just injuries from him. Jerry Jeudy was underperforming today. But yeah, with the injuries and a few players underperforming was enough for me to walk away with this win. Like I said, I like my roster right now. Matthew Golden, again, I think he's going to be a sleeper for me. This past week, he finished off with 4 catches, 52 yards. A little bit of an increase. Like I said, they were playing the Cleveland Browns, and they lost. It was a really bad performance by the offense. We believe the score was 13-10. But I expect the Packers to progress more and more. I think he's going to get used more in this offense, so just waiting for that to happen so he can get moved into my lineup. But as of right now, I like this lineup. I picked up Bucky Irvin last week. Somebody in my league dropped him. I don't know how or why, but I got him in the waivers. But I'm liking this team right now. I'm liking my team a lot. 1 and 2. On to the next week. My cousin's fantasy football league. This was definitely a must-win week for multiple reasons. One, This is a rematch of the championship in our league from last year where I lost by about 4 to 6 points. And not only just that, but my opponent had drafted 2 players that I wanted in the draft 2 picks before I could, because they had back-to-back picks with the second pick. This is like in round 2 or 3. I wanted to get Puka and Kyron. They drafted both right before I can get either one. So this is especially important for me to avenge myself from last season, and then also just to avenge from missing out on 2 really, really good players. So let's go ahead and break down these performances because it was a good week of football. First off, Jalen Hurts. Now, although he did a number on my team, it wasn't in good favor given that he broke down 34 fantasy points. He had 3 passing touchdowns. Let's get more into the stats. He had 3 passing touchdowns, 9 carries, 40 yards, and a touch push touchdown. Even though I'm not a big fan of touch push in general, but it does count for 6 points in fantasy, so we'll live with it. So 4 total touchdowns this past week for a good 34 points. Josh Allen, 28 points. He had 3 passing touchdowns against Miami with 4 carries and 25 yards for 29 fantasy points. So just between my quarterbacks alone, I had about 60 points, and that truly was the difference, where my opponent had 16 points from Bo Nix, who only had 1 passing touchdown, 8 carries, 33 yards, 16. And CJ Stroud lost to the Jaguars, had 1 passing touchdown but had 2 picks. That truly was a difference because he had some playmakers in his team. He had Kyron Williams went off for 20. Like I said, Kyron's numbers going to keep going up week by week. Kyron had 94 yards rushing, 2 catches, and a receiving touchdown. James Cook's been balling this year. James Cook had 100 yards rushing, 3 catches, 10 yards, and a touchdown. 25 points basically. And then even at Puka Nacua, another 20-point game at Puka Nacua, 100 yards receiving, 1 carry. So yeah, his playmakers, he had 20 from 3 different playmakers, but it was the quarterback matchups that did it for me. Kenneth Walker III finished off with 16 carries, 38 yards, but he had 2 rushing touchdowns. That truly was the difference for me right there. Didn't have a crazy amount of rushing yards, but didn't need to. Played the Saints and they blew them out. But the surprising game for me was the Atlanta versus Carolina Panthers. I thought this game would be a lot closer. I didn't expect Atlanta to get shut out. Michael Penn Jr. didn't have his best game. He got benched in the 3rd round, I believe. Third quarter. This wasn't his week. Miami continues to struggle, but Tyreek is managing to put up decent games. Had 5 catches, 50 yards with a touchdown for 16 points. And yeah, just looking at it, overall good performance. Again, the tight end spot is always very, very hard to gauge. You really never know who's gonna pop off. Tucker Kraft now had 5.9 points, even though last week he had 25. And TJ Hawkinson, if I'm not mistaken, this is his first good game. Yeah, his first good game, 16 points, 5 catches for 50 yards and a touchdown. So tight ends are really, really hard to gauge. I'm trying to do a little more research on them to see, but they're pretty hard to gauge. Emeka Egbuka's solid performance, even though I had him on the bench. And then Caleb Williams, I had a hunch he was going to play good because he was going up against the Cowboys. But man, 4 passing touchdowns for almost 300 yards, 5 carries, 12 yards. Jeez, what a game. Caleb Williams developing into a really, really good quarterback. My defense, 8 points, even though they lost to the Eagles. Heartbreaking loss. Had a blocked field goal. That did a number on my Sunday. I'm gonna leave it at that. Because overall, it's a really good game. But for what I noticed from the Rams is when that front four doesn't get home, our secondary gets re-exposed for being a bit average. That's honestly the main weak point in the Rams. That secondary and man-to-man coverage. You put up against a decent to good receiver, it's gonna more likely be in favor of the receiver. But looking for a bounce back game from the Rams next week. And yeah, it was a really, really good win today. Won by about 6, ironically, because I believe I lost by 6 in the championship. Improved to 2-1. And the reigning defending champion is now 0-3. We'll see if they can bounce back. And yeah, on to the next one. Now let's get into my only loss of the week in the GBS Football League. Lost by about 15 points. Let's break down where that happened. Starting off, Patrick Mahomes, 13 fantasy points for me. Yes, it came in a win against the Giants, but 13 fantasy points. Only 1 passing touchdown, 5 carries, only 2 yards, even though he recently had been rushing the ball very, very well, and that truly was the difference between a 20-point fantasy point game and his 13-1 that he had was really the rushing, because everything else is pretty standard, pretty similar. Around 200 yards passing, 1 passing touchdown, no interceptions. It was just the rushing that was down for him this week. I'm hoping to see a lot more from Kelsey in the future. I feel like him and Kelsey really aren't on the same page right now. Hoping to see a lot more from them in the future, helping with my fantasy team. Kyron Williams, 19.2 points. Like I said, he had a decent game, about 100 yards rushing. Had a receiving touchdown. Did a pretty good job moving the ball. Was averaging 4.7 yards a carry, which is pretty good. But the big stinker for me this week, Malik Nabers. There's rumors that Russell Wilson's going to get benched because this past week was horrendous. Horrendous. There's no reason that Malik Nabers is finishing with 2 catches for 13 yards. He's way too good to only have 2 catches for 13 yards. Only had 7 targets. Needs to every week at least have 10. 3.3 fantasy points is unacceptable. I understand that you're not going to always have your greatest games every single week. Like, you're not going to always get 30, but 3? From 30 to 3? That's crazy. That right there is ridiculous. And then Brian Thomas Jr., just back-to-back games now. Actually, all 3 games this season have been mid. 2 catches, 55 yards. Granted, 55 yards isn't bad, but again, it's just another man that needs to be getting at least 8 targets a game, more so 10. Only 6 a game? My goodness. And then Tyler Warren, again, he's a rookie, so I'm not going to expect him to be putting up 100 yards a game, but I like to see at least 10 from you. At least 10 points a game. This game wasn't your best. Who else? Marion Hampton. I almost put him on the bench, but I'm like, he's a rookie. He's going to develop. He's going to get better and better by the weeks. And he put up 70 yards rushing with a touchdown against the Broncos. I'm not going to lie. I've been seeing a lot of people put up numbers against the Broncos. I thought their defense was done better this year. Having the reigning DPOY, had a high-ranked defense coming into the season. I've been seeing teams put up good numbers against them, which is kind of shocking. And then the Patriots defense sold me. I thought they would hold up a little better against Pittsburgh, but I guess not. But really, the difference for me this week in the loss was quarterback play. My opponent had Jalen Hurts, who, as I said earlier, had a great game against the Rams for 4 total touchdowns. David Montgomery and the Lions against the Baltimore Ravens this past Monday. My goodness, they did a number on them. I think Montgomery had 2 touchdowns. Gibbs had 2 touchdowns. They were just running the ball at will. And then David Montgomery, whenever you see Jahmyr Gibbs get tackled on the 1-yard line, just know Montgomery's getting a touchdown. That's just how it is with that team. They love Montgomery in the end zone to punch it in for those 1, 2, 3-yard rushing touchdowns. And that, as you can see, explains the 30 points right there. He finished off with 151 yards carrying, but he only had 12 carries. 12 carries for 150 yards. This was like Derrick Henry in, I think, week 1 or week 2. Had 2 rushing touchdowns only on 12 carries. That's Montgomery for you. He's not going to average 20 carries a game, but he runs hard. And they love him at the goal line. But yeah, that was really the difference for me. They had 2 players go for 30, and then they had Cam Scatterbo on the bench go for 25. And yeah, my playmakers just didn't come come to play. Brees Hall and the Jets. I don't know what's going on with the Jets. They had a really good week 1, and ever since then they've been struggling. Brees Hall only 20 yards rushing. He had more yards receiving than rushing. So between Brees Hall, Malik Nabers, and Brian Thomas Jr., I had 20 points between 3 of my playmakers, whereas my opponent had 30 between just 1. And that truly is a difference in this 15-point loss. And like I said, it's such a deep league. It's a 10-man league, triple receiver, double flex. I really don't have much room for error. So I really had to just hope that my players just start to play better. Because like I said, my bench, I don't really have much on my bench to work with. Besides Rashid, like Shaheed could have a good game here and there. Darnell Mooney, but I mean, with the Falcons getting shut out, you can't really rely on that. So, like I said, I'm still liking my team. Just wasn't a good performance this week. Looking to bounce back in this next week and even out my record at 2-2. Break down the final game of week 3. Dominant performance by me. Won by about 60, 50. It's a really good game, really good week by me. My quarterback led the way, 27 fantasy points. My wide receiver 1, 22. My flex 1 had about 20. Wide receiver 2 had 15. Running back 2 and my tight end and my flex 2 didn't really play all that good, but like I said, I had dominant performances from my QB, wide receiver 1, and my flex, and that truly was it for me. My opponent really just had his wide receiver 1 that did really good, and everybody else had either average to below average games. And let's further break down what exactly happened this week. So let's get into the simple box score. So Lamar Jackson finished the game with 3 passing touchdowns. Even though it was a loss, he still played pretty well. Had about 300 yards passing, 35 yards rushing, and 3 touchdowns for 27 points. Derrick Henry had a fumble, really big fumble. Might have cost him that game. Lost by 8. Finished off only 10 points in fantasy. Had a touchdown, but only had 50 yards rushing. Alvin Kamara, only 40 yards rushing, 14 yards even, for a whopping 6.6 points in a loss against Seattle. Tough loss for them. And then again, Puka Nacua, another 100-yard game, but it did come in a really tough loss with a blocked field goal that led to a touchdown, ultimately losing by 7. Emeka Egbuka, really liking this pickup. I had him in the 5th round of the draft as a rookie. He's been balling, had 14 points this week on 85 receiving yards. Tyler Warren, definitely going to need more from you next week. I'm going to need at least 10 a week from you. Keenan Allen, again, I can't say enough about Keenan Allen. A touchdown every week this season. And as a 32-year-old, just came back to the Chargers. It's like him and Justin Herbert haven't lost a step. He just keeps finding him in the end zone. Keeps on finding him. James Conner, I remember he got injured. I don't remember how long he's going to be out. He went out with I forget, it was season ending. Yeah, out with a season-ending foot injury. That's a big loss. Big loss by me. I got to find somebody to replace him. Cortland Sutton had a really good game. I didn't even remember David Montgomery on my bench, but he had a fantastic game. Cortland Sutton had a really good game against the Chargers in a loss, finished with 100 yards receiving and a touchdown. And then David Montgomery had 150 yards on about 12 carries, 2 touchdowns. Monster game by him. And yeah, my opponent just didn't come to play this week. Saquon Barkley didn't have himself a good game against the Rams. Rams played really good defense on him. Josh Jacobs had a decent game. Antonio Brown had a great game against the Rams. But yeah, overall, this is a really good showing by me. Took this dub pretty easily, improved to 2-1. Looking to go 3-1 next week. But yeah, I like my team a lot this week. Overall, this week in fantasy finished 3-1, which is amazing. Great bounce back week for me, having a 0-4 week last week. I locked in, looked at the matchups, tried to put out the best players possible. Came away with 3 wins and only 1 loss. Can't be mad at that. Next week, we're looking to improve even more. I'll try to get 4 wins next week, and I'll see y'all on the next one.